transparency as recommended by the United Nations Special Rapporteur.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. I return now to questions for oral answer and question number 2 in the name of Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Social Development and asks, do the same needs in the community continue to exist now as they did in 2011 when she extended the life of the Community Response Fund, stating, quote, "We listened to community organisations who were concerned the fund was ending while pressures remained, so we kept it going," close quote. If not, why not?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, of course, some of the needs have not changed, but the context for families has changed. In 2009, when this fund was set up, the economy was contracting, the world was facing a systemic financial crisis, and New Zealand was looking at a decade of deficits and ever-rising debt. Those circumstances have all changed. The funding was always was announced and always intended to be a one-off fund. The member makes the mistake. The member makes the mistake of thinking that the only way to get results is to spend more money. In fact, the government is working intensively with the NGO sector to focus more on outcomes and use the money we have much more successfully. And I'll have to say the NGO sector is playing a very responsible and long-term role in those discussions.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Supplementary to the Minister. Is she aware that the South Wairarapa will lose its food bank coordinator as a result of the Community Response Fund coming to an end, a role that has seen more demand in the last 2 years than when she first introduced the fund? If so, what led her to decide that this organisation was no longer in need of support?
Honourable Bill English, on behalf of the Minister for Social Development.
No, Mr Speaker, I'm not aware of that, and of course would need to check up on the facts of that matter. We are engaging with NGOs on better ways of ensuring that the significant amounts of money that go into a community such as Wairarapa are used to achieve better outcomes. Too much of the money that goes in is dedicated to administration and fundraising through large numbers of groups, some of whom don't have the capacity they need for the problems they are trying to solve. Those discussions are ongoing. And in fact, the total amount of money being paid out to these groups has risen from $280 million in 2009 to $320 million this year, and that is excluding the Community Response Fund.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Supplementary to the Minister. Is she aware that Rainbow Umbrella Charitable Trust, who provide after-school programs for children and young people with disabilities, will close their doors today because of the end of the Community Response Fund, leaving up to 35 disabled children without specialised care? If so, what led her to decide that this organisation was no longer in need of support?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, I am aware of that one because it's been, I think, broadcast in the media. The fact is the Community Response Fund was always very clearly specified as a fund put there in response to the very difficult pressures of recession. Despite the fact that the Community Response Fund has come to an end, overall funding has increased, but more importantly, we are working with the NGO sector to get better value for the hundreds of millions that goes into that sector, too much of which is spent on administration and fundraising. And I invite the member to visit some of the projects around the country, such as the social sector trials for youth, the child health teams in Whangarei, the education initiative in Rotorua, which are focused precisely on getting better use of the extensive resources available.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Is she aware that Age Concern, who provides professional help each year to 1,500 older people who are abused physically, emotionally or financially, will lose services in Kaitaia, Rodney, Rotorua, Wairoa and Marlborough due to the Community Response Fund coming to an end? Or is he saying that they spent too much on administration and fundraising?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, no, I'm not aware of those particular changes. I can only reiterate the points I've made. First, excluding the Community Response Fund, funding through these programs has increased from $280 million to $320 million over the last 4 years. Secondly, the Community Response Fund was always a short-term fund and no one was misled about that. And thirdly, we are working with the NGO sector to make more effective use of the fragmented funding streams, of which there can be hundreds, into any individual community.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Does he have any plans to intervene for these organisations and the more than 290 others who will lose funding as a result of the Community Response Fund coming to an end, many of which will close their doors as a result? Or is he content to simply blame fundraising and administration for the fact that core services will be lost as of tomorrow?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, of course, if there are very significant needs here, I'm sure the Minister would pay some attention to it. But we need to be very clear. The Community Response Fund was always set up as a one-off fund. It was extended in the face of the extended recession. At the same time, we've spent several years working and negotiating with the NGO sector to ensure that we have better public services available to New Zealanders who are in need.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Jacinda Ardern.
Supplementary to the Minister. How much money was cancelled as a result of this government putting an end to the Pathways to Partnership program, and how much of that is no longer going to the community sector as a result of the supposed Community Response Fund being cancelled?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can't answer the question as to how much money was funded from the Pathways to Partnership, except to say that the Labor Party opposition thinking about social services is clearly anchored very, very deeply in 2005 when that was first set up. The world's changed, the NGO sector has moved on. There is a much more gritty and responsible discussion going on about how to use our resources more effectively. Far too often, more money is a signal of failure, not success.
Good answer. Question number 3, Dr. Russell Norman. Order. Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you,